It was awesome.
Well, I mean, it is something to see the Chiefs not just look human, but just get destroyed.
We'll start with this question from Robin.
So there's still a damn good defense.
I have zero problem with them bringing this guy in.
All right, welcome back to the Buffalo Plus channel presented by Connors and Ferris. Mike Catalana, Dan Fetes. I am Jenna Cottrell. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. We always appreciate it. We're talking the Super Bowl, what went down, how it can help the Bills in terms of roster planning, what we want to see. And we also are talking You Ask, We Answer, presented by Stellar Roofing, Windows, and Siding. And we'll take some questions, answer them. But first things first, I want to start with the man of the hour. Oh, I was talking about Dan.
Yeah. So let me tell you about the Eagles. Okay, you're like let's get going.
All right.
You know, sometimes I think I have to preface this for our Bills fans to say this is why I do what I do. I grew up going to Eagles games. The first game I went to was in Franklin Field, University of Pennsylvania, when I was like 7 years old. So my family's had
1946.
Don't laugh. It was in the 1960s. And you know, and then I went to the vet. I went to all those games. That's where I fell in love with this. It was my dad would bring us, my brothers. We had a great time doing it. My brothers still have tickets and all. So that's how I ended up doing this job. It really was the Eagles, and they were terrible when I was a kid.
The Eagles.
So while I covered the Bills, I was thinking about this. I've covered the Bills for a longer consecutive amount of years than anybody. Yeah. More than Vic, who has been awesome. More than Sal, who's annoying. That's our Sal, Majorana. But I have been. But that has never impacted this. I mean, they play a few times, and I've wanted so badly for them to play in the Super Bowl. And it's going to happen one day.
And you were this close.
This close.
Yeah.
But it's awesome. I told everybody when the Eagles won in 2018, I want that for Bills fans. Because that was more like emotional for my whole family. My dad had passed away a few years before, loved the Eagles. This was very different because, one, it's the second one they've won, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. It was a blowout. I mean, it was a demolition.
Yeah.
It was not like the last one where it was down to the Hail Mary on the last play.
Yeah.
It really was over at halftime.
Yeah.
Even though, you know, you never know what happens in the third quarter and maybe they get back in it. So that was stunning. But it was also kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, it was. I was on the news. I was talking about how calling it a blowout wouldn't do it justice and kind of be disrespectful to actual blowouts. Like that, this was an ass kicking. Like this was.
Yeah.
And Mike and I were joking around about it before this, that if this game would have been played at 4:00 on a Sunday during week 13, they would have gone to another game.
Yeah.
Like that was how one-sided, lopsided this game was. I didn't see that coming just because of, look, and I said this, I thought the Eagles had a better roster. Like that didn't surprise me that they balled out.
Yeah.
I was surprised by how bad and how poorly coached. We always talk about the coaches whenever the Bills lose. Why can't we talk about the fact that what did Andy Reid do? What did Spags do for 2 weeks? Because they looked completely lost.
Well, let's start. That's our first question from Turtle at 115. Did you guys expect to see that type of performance from the Chiefs? Because you're right. I think across the board, we all knew that the Eagles roster was more talented, but you're like, hey, it's the Chiefs. They got that Chiefsy quality. They've been here before. They've won here before. And watching that game on Sunday, it was like, they're being outperformed by the Eagles. They're playing undisciplined. They are playing frantic. They were just looked like a team that had never been there before.
Yeah. You know, a lot's been made. Vic Fangio went with just rushing for and getting pressure. And that is very impactful because Mahomes looked like a scared rookie in the game. Mm-hmm. And you never see that. But it is all three levels because in many of those cases, you may get some pressure, but if you're not covering on the backside, he's going to have somebody open. Even when he did, he made poor decisions, poor passes.
Yeah.
Guys didn't come through for him. I mean, Hopkins dropped a wide open one. Their chances were very few. His numbers at halftime were, I think it's the worst ever in the history of the Super Bowl for a quarterback. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think he was like 4 of 13, 1 first down, 30 yards.
Well,
something.
The Chiefs had 23 yards of offense and the Eagles had 24 points.
Yeah. They did not reach past midfield until the third quarter. in the
It's just-
game when they scored.
It was awesome.
Right. So,
it was awesome.
well, I mean, it is something to see the Chiefs not just look human, but just get destroyed. And look, they've been awesome. You're talking about a team going for its third straight Super Bowl.
Correct.
And we know they've eliminated the Bills. So if there's Chiefs fans in here who, God bless you, you guys get hurt about anything that's ever said about the team. We know they've beaten the Bills 4 times. Like,
Yeah.
we're not stupid. They have been better than the Bills to
I'm
get
not
there.
stupid.
Right. But I look at this and go, so much is expected of a team that is going for their third straight Super Bowl. It was one of the worst performances, certainly I've ever seen out of a Super Bowl champion.
Yes.
In a game like this. And yeah, and the Eagles, I mean, it was a total destruction.
I would have thought that would have been the type of game we would have saw if the Commanders made it to the Super Bowl. And you could have walked away going, well, hey, they were a little bit ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
They were, maybe a little over their skis, but hey, they've got a good team coming back. I said that, and I tweeted that, like, this does tarnish some of the Chiefs dynasty, that 40% of their Super Bowls that they've been in have been routes.
Yeah.
The non-competitive games. 2 out of their 5 games have been non-competitive. And to me, that does take away some of their shine.
Yeah. I mean,
And again, I understand they've beaten the Bills.
And they've won 3 of those games.
I'm not sitting there saying like, oh,
No.
I get it. I understand it.
But I would say they've been outscored in the 5 games because they've got blown out twice. And
Give them a home stat.
10 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and been outscored. When he's needed to, big moments in those other 3 games. He's been trailing in every game. We saw him in the game down in Miami, brought him back. They won the game. You saw what he did against the Eagles and then the 49ers in overtime. All those great. But the other one's bad. Andy Reid is, 3-3, but I just have never seen them look, not just, I wouldn't even say if it was unprepared, but unprepared to adjust because they needed to do something else, whether it was run the ball more or quick screens or anything. They just felt like they were running the same play over and over again.
Did it have any of the same feeling of like when the Bills got back to that 4th Super Bowl when they just were like ran out of gas? Did it have any of that same kind of feel? Because I feel like at some moments you just saw like the Chiefs they really didn't have an answer. It almost looked like they were already so accepting that like they had lost. Even at moments where I was like, all right, you make a couple plays, like you could get back into this game. And then it just looked, they were so dejected on the sidelines. I didn't know if there was any parallels.
Well,
and seeing those dejected Chiefs fans on the sidelines, that's
pretty good.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
So if you think of the Bills' 4 Super Bowls, they lost the first one.
Slow-mo of like,
oh, I know.
It was great.
They lost the first one, obviously, we know, on the kick. They went into that second one against Washington feeling pretty good about themselves, made some dumb mistakes, the helmet stuff and all. Really got run out of the gym in that one. And then the Dallas game, which was awful. So you get to that Atlanta game, which is the final one, and they were winning at halftime after all those losses. And then they fumbled, Thurman did, ran it back for a touchdown, and then it was dejected. It's going to happen again. And I think it ended up 31-13, something like that. It was really bad second half. That was the place you saw it in that last game. But in that game, they had the lead at halftime and then fell apart in the second half. That's that fumble, and it just was ugly. So you can tell it wears on a team.
Absolutely. We were joking around too, just the fact of you're saying that not willing to adjust, not being able to adjust, and not saying you're unprepared, but just not knowing, hey, we're getting punched in the face, not once, but repeatedly. Like, what do we do? And I joked around that it was like the miracle on ice when the Soviets didn't know when or how to pull their goalie because they had never been in that situation.
Never been behind.
And you have the shot in the moment of Herb Brooks going, he doesn't know what to do. Like that was a little bit of that feel of like, because at 10-0, you still thought, hey, like 10 points. Like Nick Wright thought he was pretty comfy. And that fact of it was just a constant wave. It was, they couldn't get the stop on defense. And then it was 3 and out, sack, Mahomes under constant pressure. So it was, oh, hey, breaking news. If you want to disrupt great quarterbacks, get pressure on them. That's a novel concept that the Eagles have revolutionized in the game of football.
Yes. Tampa did it to Mahomes. The Eagles did it to Mahomes. And before that, the Giants did it twice
to
against Brady. Yes.
I do think it was an important reminder that like the Chiefs are human though. I feel like
Yes.
throughout this stretch, you could have explained away, hey, that Super Bowl against Tampa, Mahomes was younger. Look at all the success he's had. They're going through a historic three-peat, and then just see them look so underwhelming. It's like, okay, this team is beatable. Because I feel like a lot of times for Bills fans, especially after this last loss in the AFC Championship, I feel like for some fans, they're like, they are never going to get over the hump that is the Chiefs. But I think Sunday was like, okay, this team, if you would approach it the right way, if you build the roster the right way, you execute in the right way, the Chiefs are human and you can beat them.
You're 100% right. That's what I came away with from the game. I'm thinking for the Bills or the Bengals, even though the Bengals beat them in a playoff game, or the Ravens or any of those teams. The Chiefs have earned this, and I'm saying this as a compliment. They were the bully that got punched in the face, and they didn't know how to react because there's been so good, it just doesn't happen. And the narrative of this game was, oh, I think the Eagles maybe are better, but they have Mahomes and they have Andy Reid.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, they made Mahomes and Andy Reid look like they were the Cleveland Browns.
It wasn't a dumb narrative. Like that is what, like I said, like I bet on the Chiefs because I also thought I can lay my head down at night if I lose with Patrick Mahomes and lose money
because he doesn't lose.
It's like, okay, it's those times when you try to outsmart yourself. So I think that's why the narrative, the line, the growing or the main narrative was that of, hey, the Eagles are playing really good. They got this, but you had Andy Reid and you got Patrick Mahomes on their side. It just, to your point, the Chiefs have been punched before, but they've always had a counter. And that to me was the most shocking when to the question of, I've just never seen them not have an answer. Like, okay, hey, they're taking away our jab. We'll go with a left hook. They didn't have anything.
Nothing.
And this was the first, like, this is what the Bills should have done. They weren't able to. They weren't able to generate pressure on Mahomes like the Eagles did.
Right.
And you really saw when you have elite shutdown corners and you have wide receivers, and not giving an excuse, but a reason. Like Rashid Rice is the best wide receiver on the Chiefs. He's probably the best wide receiver on both the Bills and the Chiefs.
Right.
And he's not out there.
Yeah.
And it finally caught up to him.
Yes. And I would say that the Chiefs offense was so bad in that game that I thought the Chiefs defense actually played pretty well.
Not bad.
And they gave up 33 points to the Eagles, and the Eagles called off the dogs. Like,
yes.
Kansas City's offense was so bad.
Kenny Pickett played.
Yeah. It is
the amount of
wild.
Disrespect you have to play.
I love it.
By the way, I want to add one other thing. This is just the Philly pettiness in me.
Hit me.
But I thought it was a little, this is unfair. For Mahomes to be in there throwing in garbage time.
Oh, yeah.
It's a little like, really?
Yeah.
Like, first of all, maybe they didn't want to put Wentz in the game at the end against Philly, but like, whatever. Should have just run the ball at the end. And he threw it. Of course, they're both to Xavier Worthy just for the Bills. But it's a little odd to see him.
It was pity.
It was. I gotta fix how my stat
and the
line
last
looks.
touchdown was against the backups. They had taken the starters out. And I was a little bit surprised. I'm like, Mahomes is still out there? And he threw a touchdown, but it was against the third string safety that got beat over the top. So that surprised me a little bit. But I guess if he wanted to be out there, I mean, the guy's been awesome. It's 3 straight Super Bowls. Let him do it. But, those will add up the numbers. But you guys know the numbers. I mean, the numbers are ugly.
Yes.
Ugly.
Mm-hmm.
The garbage numbers, you take those out. So for the game. But I'm with you on the idea of them looking beyond human. And that should be in everybody's head. Play your game.
Mm-hmm.
Play better than they have. It's not going to take a miracle to beat the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Just,
nope.
What do they say? You don't have to be the toughest team. You just got to be tougher longer. And the Eagles just beat on them. And they kind of quit.
I had a friend at halftime. We were at a party and they were like, are they doing this on purpose? The Chiefs? Like, are they lulling the Eagles into a safe space of security? It's like, no, I don't think you do that in the Super Bowl. But it was just like an honest, like, is this really how they're trying to play?
Yeah.
They had no answer.
And
it was
jarring.
it was jarring. No, there was just so many times where I was like, oh, this is Mahomes, like, and then it was all that pressure and him and just being unable to get away from it. And it was awesome.
And the decision making. I mean, he was flustered, but I mean, the pass that DeJean intercepted, it's a terrible decision.
Yep.
And he's right there, and he takes it back. When you see the replay of it, I don't know how he doesn't see him. And DeJean just waited. That's a rookie, and he made that play.
Exciting whites.
Yeah, he's pretty good. It was
on his birthday,
22 years old.
Saquon,
But
22. What were you doing on your 22nd birthday?
Yeah, it wasn't good.
Yeah, it was,
it was definitely. Yeah, it wasn't.
Wasn't
doing
returning
that.
a pass for a touchdown.
That's fair.
I wasn't drinking at a Super Bowl.
Now, I will say that, man, the Eagles have had a stretch of phenomenal drafts, and this is how you build that team. And when you look at it, you say jarring, like you look at the guys they have picked and what they've done, and they've drafted like Cam Jurgens and Dickerson, the offensive lineman, and they've made Jalen Carter, and then you've got Smith on the outside.
You traded for AJ Brown.
But then you drafted the two corners. They got the best cover corner,
Quinyon Mitchell.
And so they have hit on all those guys, and they are very young. They are a very young defense. So you got to hit on those.
That was what I think stood out to me the most when I thought that this game would come down to a little bit more X's and O's.
Yeah.
And Vic Fangio was phenomenal. Like he's been phenomenal all season long. What they've been able to do with the back end. Vic is normally a guy that you want to talk about Sean getting crap for playing a soft cover too.
Right.
Like that's Vic. Like they even talked about it. The one good thing that Brady said during the whole broadcast was that Vic has always said he'd rather die of 1,000 paper cuts than one big play.
Yeah.
So like he doesn't give up big plays.
No.
But at times, X's and O's are one thing. That one was Jimmy's and Joe's. That looked like
100% correct.
I don't think that there was anything special drawn up for Josh Sweat to be like, hey guys, in the headset, have Josh Sweat push the offensive lineman back into Mahomes' lap.
Yeah.
Like, that was just
dudes beating other dudes.
Yeah.
Yes. Or whooping another man, right? Like Daquan says. But I will say this for Bills fans. I know we've seen a lot of stuff and maybe changes in the coaching. They talk about more man-to-man and all. He plays a lot of zone in Philly, and they play it well. And they 2 years ago, they've tried to hire Vic Fangio. They couldn't get him.
Yeah.
Different reasons. He ends up going to Miami. Hey, Bills fans, here's another thing for you. When he left Miami, all of the Dolphins players, not all of them, a lot of them were like,
rejoiced.
Fangio, he's this. He doesn't know this. They were very upset with him.
Coach is too hard.
Because that's a soft team.
Yes.
When he walked into Philly, the first thing he said in the meeting was, they were talking about this morning. He said, fellas, I don't blame you. You don't work hard enough. I don't blame you for that, but you're going to work hard now. Like, he's like, you just haven't been pushed, and he's going to push you. And he did. And it worked out.
But, a guy that was 0 for 7 in his career against Mahomes.
But that number, there's so many numbers.
100%.
Because the numbers are, they had scored, his offenses had scored like an average of like 12 points against Mahomes. But his defense.
Don't provide context in his stats, Mike. What podcast do you think that we're watching
His
here?
defense does work. By the way, also, I think Jalen Hurts is a top 10 quarterback in the league. The top guys are the top guys. But that dude in the big moments is money.
Yeah, he's nails.
His Super Bowl numbers are off the charts good. He's 2-0 in NFC championship games. I mean, I know he's got talent around him, but in the Super Bowl, like, he outplayed Mahomes in the one they lost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And he certainly outplayed him in this one. So, you Bills fans, you already got the better quarterback. You have an offensive line. This is what I'm saying is there is a lot to like about the Bills. You just got to get that defense going.
This was Mike had been telling us before that he had driven home from Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it was, I think he said 5 hours of not talking to anybody. He's all.
I want to check the tape on that.
Yeah,
that doesn't seem. Yeah.
Well, I don't.
Keyed up.
He's all locked and loaded.
I don't talk to myself when I'm in the car.
I don't think that's that weird. I talk to myself sometimes in the car.
In the comments, do you talk to yourself when you're in the car? Out loud.
When you're by yourself, yeah. You've never been like, all right, we got 3 more hours to go. We're drive. Like, no, never. Okay, whatever.
No. Dan, do you
Okay,
talk to yourself in the car?
You've never been like, all right, I got to get off this exit and then I'm going to, no?
It's going on in here.
Yeah, just whatever. You know what? I
Well,
can't
you know
get
what?
I can't get interrupted when I'm the one alone.
You're so stunned that you're actually driving the car.
That's fair. Driving Miss Jenna.
That sounds like a Catalana thing. I would think that Mike would also be like, all right, so here we go. Okay.
No, nothing.
No? Okay.
No.
Next question. J Marsh 100. If you're Brandon Bean watching the Super Bowl and the way the Eagles dominated, what is your first thought going into the offseason? Free agency / draft. Love the show. You guys are all awesome. Thank you, J Marsh. What is your first thought going into the offseason as Brandon Bean after watching the Super Bowl?
My hot take here is that I don't have a hot take.
Oh,
and no. I mean that in the sense of, you know how we always talk about it's win or panic, and how every week is overreaction. I don't think there's no game that is the overreaction to what the league is going to be or what your team needs to do than after the Super Bowl. Oh, hey, better have a defensive line or you got no chance. You better have this or there's no chance. When the Bucs beat the Chiefs back in 2021, that was the Bucs ran the ball. Brady was good in the Super Bowl. I went back and looked. He had about 200 yards passing.
Right.
Leonard Fournette ran for like 90, and their backup running back ran for like 60. It was like, that's how you're going to do it. You need to have the running back. You need to do this. That never happened. Each game is so individual, and that's where people will have also said, I saw it all online last night. This game is such an indictment on the Bills defense. This game is such an indictment on the Bills defense. Look at what they should have done. Each game plan is different. Each week is different. I'm not saying that it is an indictment, in my opinion, on the defensive line, the fact that they couldn't generate the pressure against what was a weak offensive line.
That is right.
But to sit there and say, well, they should have done this. Okay, like each game plan matchup is different. And the Bills don't have the dudes that the Eagles do. So to do the things that the Eagles would have done wouldn't necessarily generated the same results.
I see.
But I do agree that the indictment is they don't have the dudes because they've made mistakes.
Right.
So if you're saying what should Bean do, even though it's funny, and I said that about like going for, defensive ends, try to get Crosby, get whoever, like,
Myles
whatever.
Garrett.
Right. Myles Garrett. I really do think this draft is also loaded with D tackles, and that pressure and that ability to pressure up the middle will help the guys on the outside. I'm just thinking about playmaking guys on the line in any way, shape, or form that you can get them. It might be Myles Garrett and you give up the picks and you go for the big guy on the outside. But I am thinking, like we've said before, you need help in the secondary. There's no question they do. But I always still feel better. They can coach up those guys more.
Yep.
It's the guy beating the other guy in the front. That is the thing they've been trying to do for 5 years and they haven't gotten done.
I guess that's my point. This, my sarcastic comment earlier, this is nothing new that if you can get pressure right in a quarterback's face, you have a lot of success. It's what they tried to find with Ed Oliver. It's what they tried to do by signing Von Miller. Like, there wasn't some revolutionary tactic that the Eagles brought out that you went, oh my gosh, this is where it's going. The Eagles were just better at it in that game. They had more dudes than what the Bills had. We have been saying the Bills need to, when Ed Oliver generates the type of pressure, when he's on, they're a dominant defensive line. They can be a dominant defensive line. When he's not, they're not. Like, so I don't look at this and say, oh my gosh, you have to sell the farm. I've been saying before, you need a guy that is a game changer defensively. The Eagles just happen to have 6.5 of them. Like that's where I go. So I don't overreact sitting here going into free agency like, hey, got to draft a defensive tackle in the first round. Maybe, like, if that works out, but I wouldn't reach for a guy in the first round.
I wouldn't do that either.
No,
that's where I feel like that overreaction comes after a Super Bowl of like, did you see what the team that won did?
Yes.
Yeah,
they were so good.
They played phenomenal. The Eagles played a nearly flawless game, and the Chiefs threw up all over themselves multiple times.
I think to me, it was just affirming of like, you can get guys that are game changers on your line through the draft, and also just like what a roster construction can look like when you have really talented young guys, you draft well, you add in free. Like, to me, it was just like Howie Roseman is a phenomenal general manager. Like that was my takeaway of like, and I see why the Bills have continued to try to take swings at building their defensive line, but it shows you the gap of where the Bills are and where you kind of need to be, in my opinion.
Yeah, good point.
And you keep taking swings, but at the same moment, it's kind of like the level, there is a significant drop off. And that's why I understand why people were like, wow, this kind of shows that the Bills' inability to get pressure on Mahomes, considering what the Eagles were able to do. But it is a night and day difference when you look at it. Now, do I think that the Eagles played out of their mind? Absolutely. But I just think you see the Bills have been trying for so many years.
Yeah.
And it still hasn't worked.
Because this is the failure.
Yeah.
Is the D line. They've put resources in, they've drafted. I mean, you forget like Boogie Basham, like, you know, those guys. And then when you draft
Harrison
in the secondary,
Phillips, like
you draft in the secondary, you look at, I mean, McDuffie got beat for a couple of plays, but he's a hell of a player. And then you look at the Eagles with Quinion, Mitchell, and then you got, and then the Bills have Kyer Elam, a guy who gets targeted. So you make the pick, to your point, whether you're trading up or reaching for a guy, you know, maybe is not always a great idea unless you were really convinced he's the guy to go up and get him.
Yep.
Because they have used those resources. They've used a lot of resources and it's still not good enough.
And for as much as I've been critical of the roster and we've been critical of the picks that Bean has swung and missed, you hit Bernard, you hit Benford, it's easy now with the anger and to say, look at all these guys that they drafted. Bean has hit, and some of that's luck, some of that is coaching, some of that it all plays into that. But it needs to be more consistent when you can kind of stack draft classes on top of one another, and all of a sudden the guys that you wanted to bring in are in the same system, making what they're making, and that's when it really something special happens where you sit there and you go, how do the Eagles make this work?
Yeah.
How do they have this? And salary cap isn't real. Well, it helps when you draft well, hit on guys. And for everybody that says, oh, well, Jalen Carter fell to them, they made the move.
So they had already made the move with the Saints.
Correct.
Who traded a first-round pick. I always say this, when they don't have a quarterback, idiotic. Then the Eagles ended up with that pick and ended up being top 10, and Carter dropped.
Exactly.
And they were able to get him, and he's made such a difference for them.
My critique of Bean is not that he has not overall drafted well. You mentioned Bernard and Benford. My critique is that when in the massively impactful high rounds, 1s and 2s, they have not panned out in the way recently that you would have hoped the impact that some of these guys could have.
Especially at the position that is so crucial, because Osiris Torrance, almost messed that up, is hit. Spencer Brown, great.
Yeah.
Like you paid Dion. You went and got Connor McGovern, who looks great. Like you got to push the right buttons at the right times. But the one thing that Bean has struggled on is the D-line. And for as good as the O-line has been, the D-line has been equally as disappointing.
Well, I think too, like when I always think of Bean being like, yeah, you can't draft for need. You can't draft for need, like especially in the early rounds.
Yeah.
And it's like, I hear that and I agree with that. But then it's like, then your pick of tight end better be fucking incredible. Like some of these things, it's like, I understand that you can't reach on a guy because you need that position. But I also think it's understandable to say, all right, if you want to get a guy that we don't need, he better be the best ever at what you expect him to do.
I had a friend, shout out Angela Chandra, my college roommate, said that your analogy of the basement.
Yeah.
So if the bathrooms need to be redone and you don't want to redo the bathrooms and you want to redo the basement, it better be a damn good basement.
Yes.
It better be the best basement on the block.
Exactly.
To prioritize that and to spend the money, right? It's like you would do that way. Yeah, you have to be willing to make moves, but you also, I mean, you got to get it right, or you got to coach them up. And I would tell you,
just do better.
Well, that's what I'm saying. No, I laugh, but like,
yeah,
I would be like, what is Howie Roseman in his evaluation doing and seeing that I'm not?
And he got mocked and made fun of that Howie Roseman just picked pretty much mock drafts. That was the big joke.
Yeah.
That was the big joke.
Was that Nick Wright?
I think that was Nick Wright's thing.
Yeah.
That he just
Nick Wright's been wrong about so much
but
stuff.
He just goes.
And by the way, Nick, if you want to come on Buffalo Plus to talk about the Chiefs, we would gladly do it. We've had other people from Fox come on.
Yeah.
In the
Shout out
offseason.
Shady.
Yeah.
If you want to, Bills fans.
It's like, well, maybe
love
Bean
you.
should follow the mock drafts of every
Well,
person on ESPN.
the other thing I would have to say, I think the Eagles, oddly, for years, really didn't draft from like SEC schools. Then they were like,
Hey, Georgia.
Alabama, Georgia. Oh, those are pretty good. And then people are like, oh, we only take the Georgia guys. Oh, you mean the good ones?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So and then those guys have come through. So, yeah, look, they've done a lot there. It's not like they're a perfect team. So, and you don't know what next year is going to be. I will say this about the Chiefs, as great as they've been, they got a lot of work to do in the offseason. That offensive line, Patrick Mahomes deserves a better offensive line than that for what he is as a quarterback. They don't protect him well enough. They're going to need to spend resources and draft picks, money and draft picks to try to fix that offensive line. They have some issues there, and their secondary's got some free agents. They've got a lot of guys who could be moving, so they could be in a bit of a transition year too.
Did you see that Schefter puts out all the key free agents?
I did.
The last one was Carson Wentz, and it was the meme of like,
oh, jeez,
Carson Wentz seeing his name as a key free agent.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible.
Twice on the bench at a Super Bowl, and the Eagles won both of those games.
Wow.
Brady has been in attendance of.
Yeah, Nick Foles. How about that? Did you see that tweet?
What a dunk.
Legendary.
That was awesome.
He's a good luck charm for the Eagles.
So great.
All right, let's go to the next question from @Tony's6538. Clearly, the defensive line was a difference for Philly. Do you agree with the poor results from trying to improve the D-line in the draft that the Bills should do whatever it takes to get Myles Garrett? And this also actually dovetails to another question that asked, essentially from Darren Pope 2448, like, does the Eagles D-line increase the price for trading for Garrett or another high-end pass rush?
Good question.
Yeah, maybe. It's like, I would tell you that a guy who's on that D-line, Milton Williams, is going to probably be a free agent. And he's an interior guy. And he's the guy who, after the fumble, he dunked the ball. He got the 15-yard penalty.
So worth it.
He has played really well. I don't think they're going to be able to pay him. He's a guy who's going to get paid, but it's not going to be crazy, crazy money. But he's pretty good. He's an impact player. Like, it's kind of like, man, he made another play. He's one of those sort of like the fifth guy.
Yeah.
And he makes plays. I would say not, sometimes you think, do anything, trade all these picks for Myles Garrett. It'd be great to have him, but you do have to be realistic.
You have to have a price.
You do. And I don't know where he's going to end up, because the Browns aren't going to trade him. I mean, that's pretty obvious. He's going to end up getting traded.
Hand up. I was wrong. It's not a no trade clause.
Oh, what is it?
He does not have a no trade. He will have obviously a great amount of say because whoever takes him is going to rework that contract. So if you're going to trade him, he's going to have to agree in principle to the next deal.
Right. He could just say, I'm going to hold out.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't want to go to the Cardinals, and they trade him to the Cardinals, he's going to go, well, I'm not signing. I'm not going to rework my deal, and then I'm going to sit out. So he does have influence, leverage there, but I was incorrect. As it was pointed out. I saw it somewhere else, and
so he will have that. And so, but I still don't, I don't see. And if I'm a poor team, like say like New England, well, I'm saying is where they're just, they're building. They're not good at the moment. They got the quarterback. You need a bunch of guys.
You should have said Dallas. You had a layup there for the Cowboys.
Listen, I don't need to pick on them. They just exist.
He's so giddy.
That is also like the ultimate flex. It's of like,
you're beneath me. I don't even.
It really is. But Micah Parsons,
I'm in.
Oh yeah.
I mean, younger. Can you imagine? I mean, seriously, he is a difference maker.
That's where I'm at. So to the point of the question of, do you have to do whatever it takes? I think it would be a massive failure to run it back with a Dwayne Smoot and these guys. I'm not saying you're mortgaging the farm. And I thought Smoot played good before the wrist injury in the Jacksonville game, but to try and piece it together, your defensive line with Epinesa and insert mid-tier player X, Y, and Z, I think that'd be a massive failure to the rebuilding process, and to sit there and go, well, we just couldn't get something done. You got to find something. And that something is, I said, the 5 players, whether it's Hendrickson, TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, Parsons, or Crosby. Somebody's got to come that's got to make them a player.
So you expect them to make a splash?
I think they
Yeah.
should try to.
I agree.
Yeah.
I want to try to pin down one of your takes.
It does seem to be the time.
They're
Nailing
shifty.
smoke
Yeah.
to a wall.
It does seem the time to call Dallas teams and have them do something stupid with a young
Yeah.
player, make a trade.
Yeah.
So maybe if you could get Anthony Davis, you could, if the Bills could, they could then trade him for Micah Parsons.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
By the way, Russillo had the best take on the Luka trade where they were like, he was on with Bill and he's like, well, you know, his conditioning, he's not where he wanted to be. And he interrupts him and goes, I don't care if he's smoking a cigarette, dribbling the ball up the court. He goes, you give him a super max. It was the best thing. It was like, well, his conditioning's like,
Oh
I
my
don't
God.
care.
by the way, have you ever seen some of those games in Europe where like everybody in the stands is smoking?
It's like
So
a
it's
cloud.
like he's smoking during a game.
And
It's just like,
I don't care if he's
that-
smoking.
he's the video he's just celebrating it, and the guy just takes the beer,
The beer
and he's just sitting there. He's like, they're like, this is where it all fell apart with Luka.
Oh, that's so good.
Well, like I said, if Dallas wants to trade Micah Parsons, I'd be in on that because he's a difference maker. Those kind of guys. And
You
you
need
know,
to
you
find.
say,
You need to find one.
yeah.
you got to find a dude.
Yes.
All right. Do we want to button up this and go to something else, or are there any last thoughts about Super Bowl and all that stuff?
No, I think we can move on.
Okay. Woo!
Congrats, Mike.
Okay, wait.
Yes.
Real
Do
quick.
I get a ring?
You already got the gold jacket, man.
Yeah,
Oh, that's right.
Don't get greedy.
Hall of Famer and now
Yeah.
defending champ.
Tell them who you watched the game with.
Oh, with my family?
Yeah. Well, it's like your mom.
Oh, my mom. Oh, yeah. My
Shout out
mom,
Terry.
Terry. She'll be watching this. She watches all of our videos. She heard us talking about it the last time.
Don't make fun of Jenna being high.
Yes.
Terry does not like
No,
it.
yeah.
She mentioned it to me
Stands
again.
up for me.
I do not like that.
I'm
she
not
told me.
high also. And thank you,
Right.
Terry.
And
Love you.
we're sitting there watching the game and she goes, Eagles are getting an interception coming up soon. And I'm like, okay, mom, like whatever. Cooper DeJean
Nailed it.
gone. Like 3 minutes later, it's going in the end zone.
Love
she called it.
Love
She called
it.
the pick. And I mean,
Cooper DeJean.
yeah. And it's Mahomes. I mean, it's not like he throws a lot of interceptions.
Yeah.
In the Super
Super
Bowl.
Bowl.
He
I was
does.
gonna
Yeah.
say.
It was a different story.
But yeah, she called it. So
Mike sent us a selfie after the game of celebrating with his mom. It's
Yep.
very sweet.
That
credit-
is really cool.
Hunchy.
She never went to Eagles games, right?
I don't ever remember her going. She may correct me and going. Maybe she did.
Terry,
One, I
comment
don't
in.
know.
Yeah.
How many
Yeah.
Eagles
Let
Eagles
us
games?
know.
Yes.
She had.
She was throwing batteries at Santa. she was cheering as
She
Irving
would
was being put on
never-
the
By the way,
stretcher.
I want to add one other thing here. I saw President Trump said that Taylor Swift got booed by the MAGA people. Is what he said. He
Yes.
referred to MAGA as strong. She got booed by Eagles fans.
Yes.
No question in my mind. She's from outside of Philly.
Yes.
And obviously she's with Kelsey
Yeah.
and the Chiefs.
Yes.
It's absolutely maybe some of that. Forget Santa Claus 60 years ago. Philly fans booed Taylor Swift. Absolutely, that was Philly fans booing her.
They were booing
It's-
Travis's outfit.
Oh, it was so bad.
That was not great.
No.
And it's okay. All right.
Yeah.
So there was some news this week for the Bills
Yeah.
in terms of Buffalo firing Matthew Smiley, their special teams coordinator, Jessica Alba, 83-35 writing in. Are you surprised Smiley fired as special teams coach? I think that kind of got lost in the shuffle of like Super Bowl week and all that
Yeah.
stuff, but the Bills firing a coordinator now heading into the offseason.
I'm not surprised. I was a little surprised when we were up to talk to Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott that Sean said that he is coming back. We sort of felt, at least I know I did, I think you did, Jenna, that it was like, okay, they said he's coming back, but it wasn't. I guess he said he did a good job. Like it wasn't anything bad. I mean, they reserve the right to do whatever.
Sure.
I don't know how much they had talked to him. Look, it's not always all on the coach, but they had some bad moments.
Yeah.
Fake punts going against them, 9 men on the field
Yep.
on the last kick, big return in the championship game.
Yep.
And I know there are issues when there's injured players. Every special teams coach goes through that.
Mhm.
Everyone. So this seems to be the time you would make that move.
Yeah.
So, I think they need an upgrade in special teams in general. And were you guys, either of you, surprised?
I wasn't surprised at all. I think it was the right move. I just feel like it was, like I said, something that kind of got shoved under the rug a little bit because of where we're at going into the game on Sunday. But I think it's the right call. I do. I think, like you said, it's not always like the players have to go out and execute, but it just seemed like in big moments, there were big blunders that the guys in certain spots just weren't prepared either. So
As you know, I would, big into DVOA at the end of the season as
That's
I
right.
became the numbers guy. Bills were 28th.
Yeah. That's
It's
not
just-
good,
it's
right?
just
Because there's
not-
32
yeah.
teams.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
good. And the other news, we're kind of sprinkling this in here. Denny Kellington,
Yeah.
yes.
hired by the Carolina Panthers, according to NFL's Tom Pelissero. He's going to be the VP of Player Health and Development.
That's a big upgrade for him.
Massive.
Yeah. Good for him.
8 years with the Bills, obviously most notably CPR to save DeMar Hamlin's life.
Yeah.
He even received an MVP vote that season
Yes.
for his
Wow.
effort. So pretty cool that one
Yeah.
hackathon, the video that you had of him, the Patriots game after when
Yeah.
Hines had the kickoff return and
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
congratulations of the medical
Yeah.
and training
Cool.
staff.
Good for
So,
him.
Yeah.
I didn't know about the MVP.
Yeah. Susie Colberg, I believe.
Oh, really?
Oh, Caesar Coolboy.
Yeah.
Colbert. Yeah.
Over.
Yeah.
She had an MVP vote and had him as the 5th place.
Yeah.
So
I love
pretty
that.
cool.
Yeah.
You
He's got
think
good
about-
stats.
Yeah. You think about your
Still
associate
did, yeah.
athletic trainer.
yeah.
but
there's
DeMar couldn't be comeback player of the
No.
year.
that. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. Anything else before we wrap up?
I don't think so.
All right.
Way
that'll
to go,
do-
champ.
Yeah. Proud of you. Now it's officially next season.
When
It is. We've moved in. We are to next season.
when the Braves won the World Series in 2022, like that was the first time I had in my life experienced my
Yeah.
team winning. There's nothing like it.
Yeah.
It's just the greatest feeling.
And it's been nice for me because their 2 championships are against Brady and Mahomes.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
That's pretty. Yeah.
And
Pretty
so,
good. Pretty good.
yeah.
Pretty good.
And I want the Bills to be there. So
next year's
next year we're out.
Super Bowl is in San Francisco.
You've already covered a Super Bowl.
I
There.
have
Yeah.
Super Bowl 50, and now it's going to be Super Bowl 60.
60.
That's nuts.
Wow, you're getting old.
You are getting
crazy.
you are getting old. That was a
You're
weird voice.
losing your voice.
Yep.
It's karma. All right. Also, we're the exact same age.
Nah, you're older.
Okay, because you haven't had your birthday yet.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm the young buck on this,
Yes.
podcast.
And you guys are older than me.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
All right.
So do you see it's that when you add
Yes.
up our age
Yeah.
Yes.
together?
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. I still don't get that joke. No.
Uh,
I'm kidding. All right.
Math.
Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Want to hear from you what your takeaway from the Super Bowl was.
And if you talk to yourself when you drive a car out loud,
I don't think it's that weird. If you're the only one in the car, I'm not saying I have hour-long conversations.
It's
It's
kind of
just-
what you're in.
Yeah, you.
That
imply.
was no, you
okay,
guys.
so we're on the road.
All right, so I have
I don't
3.4
think
miles to
it's
go.
not like hour-long conversations.
Why she
Yeah.
doesn't drive?
I barely drive.
Okay.
Okay. This was You Ask, We Answer, presented by Stellar Roofing, Windows, and Siding. We'll continue this. And thank you all so much for watching. We'll catch you next time here on the Buffalo Plus channel, presented by Connors and Ferris. We'll start with this question from Robin.
So there's still a damn good defense.
I have zero problem with them bringing this guy in.